Hello, and welcome to COVID Confessions. This episode, we interview Michelle Norbin, a special education coordinator at Upper Mississippi Academy. We were working on a time limit with this one, so it ended up being our shortest episode, but I still think we got a nice interview out of it. I hope you enjoy. All right. Well, we are here with Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, guys.
If you would like to say your name, pronouns in relation to the school system.
Yeah, I'm Michelle Norbin. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the high school special education coordinator at Upper Mississippi Academy.
Awesome.
How long have you been working here and then just like anywhere else as well?
Yeah, I've been teaching since 2012.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And I taught over at Humboldt High School on the west side until...
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Until, when was that? 2018? I think it was that I moved to Upper Mississippi Academy, and was a teacher. I started out as a special ed teacher in the 7th grade for that year, and then, oh yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah.
And then I moved up to 9th grade the following year, and I was the special education teacher with that group for 4 years. So I went 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and then I took this position this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you like the new position?
It's bittersweet.
Yeah.
I really like thinking about all the students.
Yeah.
So for so many years, I think about my caseload and I think about my classes.
Yeah.
And so it's been really fun to think about all of the high school students and how can we support all of them, and working with new teachers on how to be good teachers. But I miss being in classes. Absolutely. Yeah. I miss advisory so much. I miss those interactions with students on a daily basis. You know, I'll take any opportunity now, like, oh, you need help in class here. I'll join you.
Yeah.
So it's great, like, having that bigger impact, I feel, but I definitely miss that one-on-one connections.
How did it feel like interacting with students and other staff prior to COVID?
It's fun to think about. Like, I know you can't see, but just that huge smile of, like, just remembering when you just didn't worry as much, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there was so much more flexibility in what you could do and just in how you interacted with people. I feel like now, even just sitting with students, it's like, oh, am I too close? Am I far enough? Do we have germs? Like, what's going on? Whereas before, you just didn't think about that. You know, you were just people interacting. And just the things that we were able to do. I mean, we would go on adventures all the time, go to different places, and a lot of that has changed with regulations. I feel like it's starting to come back. You know, we're starting to get that flexibility again, but I miss that carefree environment.
Yeah.
Of just like not worrying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess as we kind of hit COVID, obviously there was like the immediate shutdown. How did that feel for you? How did that go?
That was crazy. I remember we were on a student release day. Yeah. And all of us were gathered as a whole staff, and we were talking about what could potentially happen. You know, we're hearing about this outbreak, but we're not going to shut down. It's not going to happen. It's not going to affect our school. And so that was on a Friday, and, you know, more news was kind of trickling in that day. And it felt like the national emergency that it was. Like, I don't think we actually accomplished anything that day as a staff. We didn't really participate in any of our trainings because we were all just like, are we okay? Mm-hmm. And then we all just kind of went home that day, like, okay, we'll see you Monday. Yeah. And then Sunday we found out it was shut down, and it was like a very weird feeling because there was so much uncertainty at that time. You know, how long are we going to be shut down? Is this a couple days? Is this a week? And as it kept coming out, it was more and more, and just like, I have to go get my plants. Like, it was really hard. It was really hard to think like, well, that was the last time I'm going to be with those students. That's the last time I'm going to be in that class. You know, it was just shocking that it hit so suddenly. And I mean, you know me, it's the hardest time with change. I was like, what? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I think it was shock. I think it was just utter shock when that happened. You know, there's definitely that part of me was like, oh, I get to be at home for a couple days. But then it was like, wait, this is actually like a really big issue.
It becomes the difference between like being in your home and being trapped in your home.
Yes, yes. I remember my husband and I first started tallying on the board how many days we were in quarantine in our house.
No.
And then we got so full, we were like, I don't want to look at this anymore. We just erased it all. It's like, I don't want to know how many days we've been trapped here. But yeah, it really was that perspective switch of like, oh, I get a vacation. No, I'm trapped. And I don't get to go see the students I love. And I don't get to do what I enjoy.
Absolutely.
When COVID came around, how did it affect how the school ran?
Oh,
or more specifically, how did it affect like your position within the school?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think we all just had to get really creative of how can we take what we were doing in the classroom and move it to this new model. And you know, we had never done distance learning. And so it was like, what tools do we have? What is Zoom? Like, how do we make sure we're connecting with students? So it was a huge learning curve. I think we had those 2 weeks to try to figure it out before classes started again. And it was like, okay, is this going to work? And I felt like everybody was just a big guinea pig. Holding our advisor, I'm like, is this working? Are we all here? Do we turn on cameras? Do we not? I don't know what we're doing. So I think it really, it definitely was, my initial intention was to try to take exactly what I was doing and put it distance learning. And then as I was experiencing that, I was like, okay, no, I just actually have to change up how this is going to go. You know, our advisory might not be that full 30 minutes, how we would normally run it in the classroom. Maybe it's, okay, we can turn cameras off. We can just check in maybe one day a week, you know, just trying to like rethink things. But it was definitely a process. And having the patience of students, like, okay, we're all learning this together. Was the biggest thing of like, I don't know how to do this. We've never done this before. But yeah, you guys were great. I mean, all the students here at UMA really made it manageable. Like knowing, like, I don't know what I'm doing here, you know?
I guess, what, do you have any, like, ideas of what went well, or what sort of methods of, like, online teaching helped? I know, because I was in your advisory, like, we ended up doing daily prompts instead of, like, having Zoom meetings. And that was really helpful for me personally. So I'm wondering, are there, like, any things that you noticed that really helped, like, I don't know, students?
I think I was able to have a lot more things individualized, which was really helpful. So getting that feedback from you guys of like, hey, do you want to do daily Zooms? Do you want to do prompts? Things like that. And having that flexibility to individualize my advisory and say, okay, we're just going to do it this way. You know, we all talked about it and said, okay, yep, this is the best way. And I noticed that was really beneficial for a lot of the special education students I worked with because we could do individual meetings and set them up at random times that worked well. It was like, hey, I know you're not going to wake up till 11, so let's get together at noon and we're going to hammer out these classes. So it did provide a lot more of that flexibility to individualize the education, which I loved. I absolutely loved. I was able to connect with students that hadn't engaged in academics in years, and they just took to it. They were just like, yes, this is exactly what I needed. Just somebody to sit with me, go through this and have that opportunity. So I think once I kind of got out of my mindset of like, well, it should look exactly how it did in school, it was able to benefit so many more and to see how that could be individualized. And some students really took to, nope, I'm going to go to class and be in class. But like even just pull-out groups. Remember, math was so nice. It was like, oh, let's just go into our breakout room. And it seemed so much easier distance learning than when we were in the classroom.
Yeah,
it's
because
like,
you don't have other groups working in the same space and talking.
Yes, exactly. It was just our quiet little own space. Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that was the most beneficial. Yeah.
As the pandemic went on, what were ways that you noticed that like students changed, or like their attitudes, how they were doing? How do you notice that change?
Oh. That I think was the hardest thing. You know, I've talked about a lot of the positives with academics, but it just broke my heart that you guys had to go through this so young. I mean, I think I said that like every day last year, that how unfair it is to be isolated from your peers, to be isolated from the school experience. I mean, it absolutely just broke my heart. I mean, you guys, a lot of students were really resilient. I mean, you guys were incredible and bounced back, but I do see a lot of that lack of social growth over those years for a lot of students, especially our younger ones that came up, the middle school, the ones that are in like 9th, 10th now, that missed those really important transition years with peers. And you can just see that discomfort and that increased anxiety, that increased stress of being around people and navigating those social situations because they were isolated for so long. And just, you know, it absolutely broke my heart. Not only missing just the high school experience, but missing those interactions with each other. You know, the only way you could connect is kind of on Zoom every now and then. And that was if you made that effort, but it was often easier for students just to isolate. And absolutely. So that one just, it was hard. That was very unfair, and just, I don't even know if I answered that question.
No, you did.
It's just, it's hard.
Absolutely. Were there changes with like, I don't know, because you worked really closely with a lot of teachers, I think, if I remember right, like prior to COVID. How did that like change, like moving into online formats? It was strange. I feel like the teachers that I had really good connections with already, we were able to transfer it really well. So like Mr. Howard and I had taught together for 3 years prior. And so we were able to kind of just take that and move it over and really learn. But I met Mr. Tyler online. And it was like, who is this man? So it was almost stranger to like meet in person. I was like, oh, this is what you look like. But it was really, it was strange, you know. And then there were the teachers that like I taught with occasionally and had some rapport with, that we just tried to navigate it the best we could. It definitely wasn't the same as like when you already have that strong relationship. It was like, are we doing this right? How's this going? And it was pretty much at the end of every class was, how did that go? Like, what was that about? But I think we were all just so excited to come back to be together again. You know, it was similar to just seeing you guys so separated and isolated. It was like, oh, we're together again. So it was really nice, but it really depended on
on what we had already established.
Absolutely. Did you guys have this might be a weird question, but
Yeah.
did you guys have teacher Zoom meetings?
We
and,
did.
Conferences? Yeah.
Yeah.
gosh.
We would get together. We would have lunch.
Yeah.
So like Miss Goldman, Mr. Johnson, Miss
Yeah.
Fitzgerald, we would have Zoom lunches,
Wow.
which was really fun. And then we'd tour each other's houses. so it was things that we never would have done.
Yeah.
And then, we'd get together after school for Zooms.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of fun. I feel like we definitely, you mentioned that. It was we had more of those social interactions, those casual relationships than we do in the school setting. Because
Yeah.
it's just constantly work
Wow.
here. And so we were actually able to take that time and just sit at home and have lunch together. It was oh yeah, we don't actually have to talk about work right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I was that was fun when we were able to do that.
Yeah. It was kind of odd how during the most socially isolated times in our lives, we because we did all, I think, or most of us tried as hard as we could to make connections even while we were isolated.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Right?
Yeah. How well do you think that UMA did handling the pandemic situation, in terms of how we had our Schoology set up and Zoom meetings for classrooms and all that? How do you think that went?
I'm sure in the moment I was I hate this.
Yeah.
I bet Kai heard me complain every day. But looking back, I'm I feel I honestly think we did the best that we could with what we had. We really tried to make Schoology a platform that was accessible to everybody and that looked the same, and so that was easy to navigate for students. I think we met so many times about just how to focus on making it accessible to students, how to make it easy for students.
Yeah.
And so I think it's hard. It's hard. I think we did pretty well with Schoology and having assignments available. I think where we struggled the most was finding that balance between pushing the academics and continuing to teach and continuing to push you guys while understanding and protecting your social emotional health, right?
Yeah.
And your mental health. I mean, you guys are kids going through a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit here and expect you to be on Zoom for 8 hours and really diving into this curriculum. And so I think that was the hardest thing for teachers at UMA to balance is that, how do we keep aware of all of that social, emotional, mental health that's going on and push those academics in a situation that none of us have ever been exposed to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think personally, we could have done a bit more with pushing the academics, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if we could have pushed more without kind of tipping some students over the edge of
absolutely.
Already going through so much.
Yeah.
So
How was it transitioning back to, I guess, in person? We had what was it, hybrid learning?
We had hybrid learning.
Were you a part
10th
of
grade.
that?
I did the last, I came back in end of March. So I missed half of that semester of hybrid, and then I came in for the end of it. So that transitions back from hybrid to hybrid. Yeah. That was weird. That was very weird.
Yeah.
I remember I was super excited to see students.
Yeah.
But it was like a ghost town.
Yeah.
Here. It was really creepy having maybe 3 students in the room.
Yeah.
And then it was really hard to navigate some students online and some students in person.
Yeah.
How do I make sure everybody can hear each other, everybody's collaborating, everybody's a part of the discussions?
Yeah.
And I don't think it was pretty. It was just survival at that point. And trying to like re-navigate those schedules, because schedules were so open when we were distance learning, right? So like I was mentioning, meeting students at random times, and then when I have to follow this school schedule in person, but I still have students that are at home, how do we still connect and make that happen? But I don't know what would have been better. Would it have been better just to wait that year and come back full in person the next year? Or, like, was hybrid a good idea? Should we have all just come back early? It was just weird. It was weird, but I don't know what would be the best solution,
Definitely.
How's it coming back fully in person? Like, was that a scary experience for either you or like the other staff, or was it all just like relief?
I think thinking back, my first thought is just that relief. I was just so excited to see everybody again. But I do remember being concerned about health, right? And especially my in-laws that I see a lot are much older, going through some health things. So I was like, what if, it was all still pretty scary at that time of like, what if I get sick? What if something happens? And, I hadn't been exposed to germs in over a year. So like, am I going to get sick? But then I remember once I kind of, got vaccinated and kind of accepted all that, I was just so nice to see everybody again. And we were all masked up, and everybody just did so well at wearing masks. Like, I think that was my first year. I didn't get a cold. It was amazing. So really looking back, just that first emotion that comes back was just that excitement, just that joy to be together again, just to have our advisory together, to meet students that I had only met online.
Absolutely.
I mean, when we started, we had a couple of ninth graders. I'm like, oh, you're here in person. And meet teachers that I hadn't met. So it was, I think it was I just remember it really fondly.
That's awesome.
Has the pandemic kind of like permanently affected how you approach your work life?
You've obviously changed like positions.
Yes,
but, like...
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think, I'm probably one of those that could be more cautious, I'm sure. But I think once the mask mandate was lifted, I just kind of jumped right back into to where I left off, obviously different position, but maybe the biggest change is just appreciating being together and appreciating this space and just the time that we have together. But I feel like, especially when we started talking about doing this podcast and doing this interview, I was like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that in a while. I feel like I just kind of put that whole COVID into its own little box in my mind. And I was like, we're just not going to look at this one again and just pretend like it didn't happen. So I don't know. I'd be curious, if I really thought back to what I was like as a teacher prior to the pandemic and now, if I did have a significant change. But I feel like I mostly just kind of duct taped it and put it in the back of the closet.
That's fair. No, we're running out of time. We have like 3 minutes left. But it's totally okay. And if you have more, we're always welcome. We're always like happy to come back and talk to you. But I guess before we leave, like, how does it look now for dealing with, COVID? Like, it's still around. Are you still dealing with like the effects of it, or like, how do you feel? Do you feel like we're going in a positive direction and kind of away from these times?
I do. I feel like we are moving in a positive direction. I do worry that we might start becoming too comfortable, you know, especially as cases do come back, as cases occur.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it as often as we used to. You know, when students would get COVID, it was sent to all teachers, make sure you get tested. And now I feel like it's just more commonplace where I'm like, no, this is still important. So I do worry that we are starting to become a little more relaxed about it, where I'd like to see us really maintain those strict barriers that we had. Especially, you know, if you're feeling sick, stay home, wear masks, like make those normal again. So yeah, part of me worries about it, but I do feel like generally I feel like we're moving in a positive way, and we just like can't dwell on that all the time and just live in that fear, but just try to move on, but move on cautiously, if that makes sense.
It does.
Just hope it doesn't happen again.
Well, if it does, you know, we kind of have an idea of how to handle it. In theory.
Hope it never does.
But
we're ready, hopefully, if it does.
Thank you so much for meeting with us.
Thank you very much.
If you think of anything else you want to add, or if you want to talk more, because I know today you were really busy, but we'd be happy to like come back and talk to you for a couple more minutes, and whenever you're free.
Sure.
But,
awesome.
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.